The first tape job we're going to do is the contact wrist, and our indications for this tape job is just when we want some generalized support for the wrist. So we're not specifically trying to limit flexion, and we're not specifically trying to limit extension. We're trying to limit both of them to a certain degree. When we're taping the wrist hands, we'll get the athlete to hold elbow in approximately 90 degrees, and with their other hand, they're going to support their forearm, just so the hand's not moving around as we tape them. Our anchor strips for the contact wrist tape job, we're going to be about 2 to 3 inches proximal from the wrist. Depending on the shape of their forearm, you might need to do just a slight teardrop shape. And we'll overlap by half, working our way distal towards the wrist. Okay, so usually 3, sometimes 4 anchor strips. And then our supporting strips for the wrist are our wrist locks. And just like for the heel locks for the ankle, it doesn't matter which side you start on. You can start on the palmar side or the dorsal surface of the hand, but we're going to do 4 altogether, and we're going to alternate back and forth which side we start on. Important also to get the athlete to abduct their fingers and extend their thumbs for this, and that separates out the metacarpals so the tape won't be too tight around their hand. So I'm going to start my first wrist lock. I'm starting on the palmar side. We always come up towards the ceiling or towards the thumb side of the hand. We wrap around, and the shape of the wrist and hand is going to direct the tape up onto the palm. Now, I angle up on the palm like so, and then when we get to the thumb web interspace here, I want to pinch the tape upon itself just so the tape doesn't extend too far on the hand. I angled up the palm. When I go across the back of the hand, I'm going to go more straight across the back of the hand. And then the shape of the hand is going to direct the tape back down towards the wrist. I wrap around, and I finish back on the same side that I started, so the palmar side of the wrist. So here you can see how the wrist lock angled up onto the palm, and then we went a bit more straight across the back of the hands. My next wrist lock, we're going to start on the dorsal surface or the back side of the wrist. I still come up towards the thumb or the ceiling side. We wrap around. Shape of the wrist directs the tape up the back of the hand on an angle. We pinch the tape through the thumb web interspace, and now I'm going to go more straight across the palm. So you can see my initial one angled up on the palm. This one we're going more straight across. Shape of the hand is going to direct the tape back down towards the wrist. We wrap around, and we finish back where we started on the dorsal surface of the wrist. I'm going to go back to the palmar side of the wrist. I come up and around the thumb side, wrapping around, angling up the palm on, or coming onto the palm at an angle. I pinch the tape through the thumb web interspace. I go more straight across the back of the hands, and I wrap back down around the wrist, finish where we started. And my last wrist lock, dorsal or back surface of the wrist, wrapping around, angling up the back side of the palm, pinching the tape through the thumb web interspace, more straight across the palm. Shape of the hand directs the tape back down towards the wrist, and I wrap around, finished on the same side that we started. Now to finish off the tape job, we're just going to repeat our original anchor strips that we did, and that will help hold the wrist locks in place. So overlapping the original anchor strip and continuing distally, overlapping by half. And that's it for the tape job. When we finish, we should be able to notice the difference between our 2 wrist locks that angled up the back of the hand and went straight across the back of the hand, and similarly in the palm, our 2 wrist locks that angled up the palm and went straight across the palm. We don't want the tape going over the metacarpal phalangeal joints, mainly so they can still move that joint. But if the athlete plays in a sport where fighting is allowed, if they get in a fight and their tape goes beyond the metacarpal phalangeal joint, they're kicked out of the game. They should feel general support to both flexion and extension. If they feel it's too tight, we're going to have to go warm up and the tape will loosen off a bit. If they still think it's too tight, then we'll cut it off and do it again. Now, as you're doing this tape job, I want you to pay attention to the pattern of where you start and which side it angles up the hand and which side it goes straight across. So you'll notice that when you start on the palmar side of the wrist, it's going to angle up the palm side and go straight across the back side of the hand. When you start your wrist lock on the dorsal or back of the wrist, you're going to end up angling up the back side of the hand and go straight across the palm. And that's important for our remaining 3 tape jobs because we'll actually use our wrist locks as our anchor strips for our later tape jobs.